whatever you're challenged with, you need to meet that head on. No excuses. You do the best that you can.
This is a journey.
Let me take you on a journey.
There will still be
The journey. The journey.
new sheriff in town, and his name is
The journey.
Journey.
This thing is bigger than Nino Brown. This is
The journey. The journey.
What is it that moved you?
The journey. The journey. The journey. The journey.
Welcome back to another episode of The Journey. I'm your host, Larry Robinson, and today we have one of my frat brothers. Yeah, I said it. He's a man of the Crimson and Cream, Kappa Alpha Psi. But before we get to him and let you know what an iconic brother that's sitting in with us today, let's get a quote from the great Dixie Homes. And you know who he is. He's the 1936 gold medalist at the Berlin Olympics and civil rights icon. And it goes like this: the battles that count aren't the ones for gold medals. The struggles within yourself, the invisible, the inevitable battles inside all of us, that's where it's at. I'm going to ask today's guest, who I'll say now is Brother Henry Hooper. Iconic is not even, you can't even define him as iconic. Born and raised in Memphis, Booker T. Washington graduate. The brother was in the Olympic trials. He fought Muhammad Ali, Secret Service agent, entrepreneur, and as I said, he's a Noop. He's one of my good Noop brothers. But too many accomplishments. We ain't even gonna get there. We're gonna get to this interview. Brother Henry Hooper.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
I'm outstanding.
Thank you for being here.
Certainly.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Noop. I appreciate it, man. This is a true honor. And you know, I really have I've been amazed by you, your stature, your humbleness. How do you do it? How do you keep it all together?
Well, I think I'm just being me.
Okay.
You know, I don't put on any airs. What you see is what you get.
Okay.
And if I got something to say to you or about you, I'm gonna tell it to you to your face.
Okay.
You know, that's direct, and you know, and that's what I expect from you.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I've always been up front. You know, I tell it like it is all my life.
Okay. So listen, that quote from Dixie Owens about the battles from within.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Well, it's the balance from within. I think everybody struggles probably a little bit, but it's how you accept it. The battles that how you're confronted with various issues, various things in life, and how you approach it, and how you let that affect you.
Right.
You know, and so whatever it is, you got to bear down, think about what it is, make a firm decision, stick by it, and that's it.
Okay. So when you came up, early years Memphis, I'm sure Memphis was extremely segregated during that time. What was it like in your household, and who was in the household with you?
Well, I grew up, my early developmental years was actually in Chicago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Chicago. My parents left Memphis when I was about 2 years old.
Okay.
So from 2 until 8, I was in Chicago. That's where I grew up in South Side Chicago.
What took you out of Chicago?
Pardon?
What took you out of Chicago?
Well, what took me out of Chicago was my parents divorced. My mother came back to Memphis with her 7 kids.
Okay.
And we moved in with my grandmother and my aunt.
Okay.
In a little 3-room house over on Porter Street in South Memphis near Lamorne Garden.
Okay.
A shotgun house where you could look in the front door and out the back door. and that's where we were.
Okay.
From 8 on, we were there for probably about a year or so, and then a mother had an opportunity to move us to Dixie Homes,
Okay.
a housing project. So
Okay.
that's where I grew up. Actually, I went from moved to Dixie Home when I was a freshman in high school in Booker, Washington.
Okay.
Story is when I was pledged in the fraternity, brothers were saying, "Oh, you look like one of those prep school Negroes."
Oh, really?
And well, at the time when I was pledged, at that time I was a Secret Service agent.
Okay.
And I said, "Yes, sir, big brother, Dixie Home Academy." And that kind of diffused the situation. Got them off me a little bit.
Okay.
But that was it. So yeah,
Dixie Homes.
Dixie Home. I'm one of the Holmes boys.
I hear you.
You know, there was Dixie Home, Claiborne Home, Foot Home, Fowler Homes.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
So that's where I grew up.
So outside. Okay. So you came back from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
You said about 8.
About 8 years old.
About 8 years old. Who was a big influence in young Henry's life at that time in the neighborhood?
My mother and my grandmother.
Okay.
I had 2 uncles who had been in the military, who had been in the army.
Uh-huh.
They were in Korea. But my biggest influence was probably my mother, and especially my grandmother.
Anybody outside the home?
You know, during that time, you were everybody's kids.
Okay.
You know, Mr. Jones down the street saw you doing something wrong, he would take care of you and discipline and talk to you, and then report you to your parents.
Right. Right.
And so it was also, you was truly, you know, the old saying, it takes a village to raise. And that's what happened during those times. You know, Miss Lockett, Carrie Lockett, next door neighbor,
Okay.
always had a big switch.
I was going to ask you.
And didn't have any kids.
Didn't have no kids, but she
Didn't
kept
have
a
any
switch.
kids, but she kept a switch
Oh, wow.
for all the neighbor kids.
She's beating other people's kids.
That's right. But she was when I look back, she was a wonderful woman. She just, you know, and she was an early mentor.
I got you.
You know.
Well, let me ask you, when was the last whooping that Henry Hooper received in life?
The last whooping that I received, to be honest with you, I haven't received a whooping.
Really?
I whooped a lot of people.
You
know.
whooped
I was boxing when I was a kid, and I started. You know, and that was another thing. See, my grandmother gave me an opportunity to sit with her
Okay.
on Wednesday nights and Friday nights and watch the past Blue Ribbon fights.
Okay.
You know, and so I learned a lot watching through that little black and white TV and watching Joe Louis, Izzard Charles, and Willie Pep, Marciano, and all those people box, and that's where I acquired a lot of my skills.
Okay.
So when I had my first little amateur fights, people thought that I had been boxing a long time.
Okay.
And so that was it. But besides,
So it was just like the karate movies. After you watch a boxing, you was out there.
Well, I was out there doing that, practicing, and so that was it. And then of course, you know, you talk about, you say, well, who was another influence? My grandmother. You know, I came from Chicago. She set me down and told me, "You're in the South, boy, this is how you are to act. Now you're no less than anybody else. Don't ever." So that was those conversations early on about racism, segregation. You know, I was schooled about that a long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
Tell me something. when did you know you was gonna be okay? When did Henry Hooper know that I'm gonna be all right? I can do this thing called life.
There was never any doubt that I would not succeed in whatever whatever challenges that I had. It never came to me that time. Things just happened.
Okay.
When I had an opportunity, you know, when I look back at when I first had the idea that I was going to go into the military, you know, this was something that I can do better.
Okay.
I just need to get away, and I like from an early age. You know, my mother bought us, my brother and I, little uniforms.
Okay.
I had a little Army uniform, and he had a Navy uniform.
Okay. Okay.
So I think that was subconsciously that sort of influenced it,
Okay.
but we never talked about it. And although I mentioned the fact that I did see some war movies and things like this, I kind of yielded to the military a little bit and started looking into it more.
As a kid, real quick, was there something you dreamed? Did you dream you were going to be somebody else? You know? No dreams?
No, I had childhood ambition. My childhood ambition was that I was going to be a federal agent, FBI agent of anything.
Okay.
Or I was going to. I used to watch in the little black and the Buffalo Soldiers.
Really?
That was an early influence.
Okay.
And I think that was probably my earliest association with the military, and watching the Buffalo Soldiers in movies, and stuff like this.
Well, when did you know that you were a black man? Hold on real quick. Listen, we're going to be right back on the journey where Brother Hooper is going to share with us when he realized he was a black man. Stay right there. It gets better after this.
The Boys of Color Conference is here again.
The Gentlemen's League and The Journey are hosting the Boys of Color Conference right here in Memphis, Tennessee at Agri Center International.
Parents, send your young men in grades 3 through 12 on Saturday, March 29th for a day of learning, inspiration, and mentoring. From coding to boxing to cooking, there's something for everyone.
Empower your son to dream bigger, achieve greater, and break barriers. Watch him take the first step toward a brighter future.
Register at thegentsleague.org.
Boys of Color Conference, March 29th at Agri Center International. Welcome back to The Journey. Listen, I'm talking to one of the baddest brothers that's ever walked the streets of Memphis, Tennessee. And before we left, Mr. Hooper, Henry Hooper that is, was going to tell us when he realized he was a black man. But before we get to that, I want to know, Henry, what's your superpower? What's that thing, you know, everybody has got something that they do better than anybody else. And I'm curious what that is for you.
Well, I really don't have a superpower. I think my strength comes from my faith.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Give us an example.
Well, I take it to the Lord in prayer.
Okay.
If I got an issue. And so that's the way it's always been.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did the faith come from? What made you know that God had your back?
the influence that I had when I was very young, when I was around my grandmother.
Okay. Grandmother was important for you, man. Grandma was
Grandma
the truth.
was important, and I call grandma Mama.
Uh-huh.
They call my mother Ma.
Okay.
Yeah, and so.
And they knew who you was talking to. If you screamed out Mama, your grandmother
I'm
would
talking
answer.
about my grandmother.
And if you said
yeah,
Ma,
that's right. I'm talking about my mother.
okay.
But my mother was always, she was working, and so she didn't have a lot of time to spend with just me, because there was 7 of us. But my grandmother spent a lot of time in teaching us.
Okay.
And telling me, she would talk to me about racism and segregation and all these other things. But she was also the one that had my hand and led me to church.
Okay.
See, and so that's where I got my faith has always been there. When I was wherever I went, didn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was I was in the Southeast Asia, or I was in Europe, or whether I was in Vietnam, I found the church.
Really?
In Vietnam, there was a village down the road that had a Buddhist temple.
Mm-hmm.
Or there was a Catholic church somewhere in the area. I didn't necessarily have to go in the place. I just had to be on the ground.
Really?
And it was reverence of that facility, of that location
Right.
that I took. And then I prayed to my God while I was there.
Okay.
And so that kind of thing stuck with me all my life.
Really?
And so, and wherever I've been, I've always been in church.
Okay.
Every military base, I went to I didn't always go to a local church downtown, but I went to a church somewhere on Sunday, to the
Right.
chapel,
Okay.
And so that's where my faith comes from. And
Your
so,
relationship with God is pretty strong.
yes.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. You're a Secret Service agent.
Mm-hmm.
And first I'm going to ask you, when did you realize you were a black man? And then I got a question about you being a Secret Service
Well,
agent.
I was a black boy before I was before I was ever a man. And my grandmother, like I said, she was the one that instilled in me of being the best that I could be, and that I was no less than anybody in this city when I came here, even though I was black.
Right.
And so that's the way it was. So I've been a black man all my life.
Okay.
A strong black man.
A strong black man.
Yes.
Why'd you put that on there? Why'd you put a strong
Because,
black man on there?
I didn't accept the norms of, I respect you because of you being an adult when I was a child,
Right.
whether you were white or black. But I did not accept abusive behavior to me, and sometimes I would respond
Really?
with a comment or with a look.
Okay.
But you knew that I didn't like what you said or how you acted.
Right.
I did enough to keep from getting in trouble or going to jail. But
Right.
but you knew.
You knew.
Yeah.
Okay. So, as a Secret Service agent, you basically were responsible to lay down your life for the president.
Mm-hmm.
as a black man, how did you deal with that cognitive dissonance? Because being a black man raised in the South, I could only imagine there was this issue with Caucasian men all the time, you know, or black and white water fountains and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with the fact I'm supposed to die?
Yeah. Well, you didn't think about it. I took an oath. You know, I would protect the president, vice president, heads of states. And so I was trained and conditioned to respond a certain way. It didn't I didn't see color or anything like that. And so
How?
how's
that even possible, Henry?
well, it's possible because that comes with the job. You know that up front.
Okay.
And so it's not something that you know. We have Secret Service. They also protect foreign dignitaries and heads of state.
Okay.
So you had white guys who were on protective details with kings from Africa, presidents from Africa, Liberia, and so forth.
Uh-huh.
So it's the same thing for them.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
they have to protect their protectee,
Right.
and you don't think about it. You do your job. You know, and so you know, and I've been with kings and queens, presidents. You know, been with Pope Paul. I've worked them all.
Okay.
Of course, that protection is just most people think of Secret Service, they just think of protection, but no, Secret Service also does investigations in most major cities. They have an office, field office. They're involved in investigations of U.S. securities, government checks, bonds, counterfeit money, electronic funds transfers.
Really?
Food stamps, counterfeit food stamps. All of these things comes on the Secret Service, and sometimes there are concurrent jurisdiction on investigations with the FBI, with the postal inspectors, with other agencies that you come up with. Say, for instance, you're investigating counterfeit case and there's drugs involved. Then you get later on you're associated with DEA.
Right.
And so there's a lot that goes on. But then I'm in the field office, and today probably it's an email that comes in that says you'll be in New York at 5 this afternoon on protective detail for the King of England's coming in town, or the
So your
Russian.
life is on call.
Oh yeah. I've gone to work in the mornings, and as soon as I got there, got the message I got to be in New York at 3 o'clock,
Right.
or in D.C.
So how did, as a young black boy coming out of Dixie Homes, what was your upbringing? So I kind of look at the long range view, and that God always kind of knows where you're going to be, and your your steps are ordered.
Sure.
I know a man praying as much as you did, your steps were ordered.
Yeah.
What about your upbringing raised you to be able to function in this environment?
I think probably the best thing that ever happened to me, I think, was, see, I left high school at the end of my junior year.
Oh.
So I was actually a high school dropout. I passed to the 12th grade,
Right.
but I went to my mother and says, look, I want to join the Marines. 4 days after my 16th birthday, on my 17th birthday. You haven't finished high school. I said, well, the recruiter told me that I could finish while I was in the Marines.
Why did you want to be in the Marines?
Well,
What about your boys? What about the prom? What about going to the football and basketball games? And
Well, those were things that was not. I played football. I played basketball, ran track, played baseball while I was in school. But I wanted to be a Marine at that time. And so I went to her and said, I want to be a Marine. Now, my mother didn't care for me playing football. I played in a way, she didn't know it. I boxed. She didn't mind me boxing, but she didn't know too much about it because she knew I was always watching the TV with my grandmother.
right.
I played baseball. She had no problem with that. Ran track. Tall, skinny kid, and but I wanted to, and then I always felt that I was in watching TV. I learned a lot of things, and that's when I said one day I like to be an FBI agent. But the Buffalo Soldiers influenced me. The movies, and I remember distinctly the movie Battle Cry, and I saw this Marine, who was an African American Marine, but he was a steward. He was, he was sharp, but he was almost like a butler. See, and that stayed with me, and so but I wanted to, and then I was running around with some guys in the neighborhood. We weren't stealing or anything like this, but we were involved in a lot of fights. And I felt I need to get away.
So you knew.
So I knew. So I went and.
Was there a moment at that point in your life? Was there an incident that you said, "I got to get out of here"?
Yeah, there was an incident that I was with a group of guys, and we were in the Dixie Homes Park, and there was a guy walking across with this lady, with this girl. They were, and there must have been about 6 or 7 of us, and they actually jumped on the guy and took his girl from her. And they actually raped her.
Oh, wow.
They raped her. And I had 3 sisters. We were a close family. That was four boys and 3 girls in my family.
Right.
And so I could think about this happened to one of my sisters. And all of us, we sort of grew up together, and while since I had lived in there, but I says, what if we get caught? I'm ruined. I was, even at that age, I understood the law and the impact of what took place. Right. I did not touch her. I had made no effort. I stayed away from it. And I looked from a distance, but I saw what happened. As a matter of fact, I left the scene.
Oh, man.
And so it was, but then somebody mentioned the police, and everybody started running and so forth. But the guy was inebriated. They both had been drinking. But it was just, I just didn't like what happened, and so I got out of there. Well, that didn't have any influence on me at the time of making my decision on whether I was going to join the military or not. But it was the guys that I was hanging around with,
right?
And so when I saw the movie. I liked what I saw. It piqued an interest, and so that's when I went to a recruiter and talked to him about joining. Right. And so I ended up. My mother reluctantly signed.
Okay.
and I went into the Marines. And I think at that time, the Marine Corps has this culture of discipline, spirited corps, always being dressed, uniform, shine, so forth. So they taught me a lot of things. You know, I learned, how to take care of myself. You know, I learned how to do my own laundry, pressing clothes and stuff like this. You had to learn shining boots and shoes to their satisfaction. And then they had signs along the wall or over the doors. Once a quitter, always a quitter. And that was another driving force. That was instilled in me. If you start something, you finish it. Once a quitter, always a quitter.
Wow.
And so the training was hard. Having just left home, and so I went through that, and that was probably the foundation of how what happened to me after that. You know,
Right.
I still had my obligation to finish high school.
Right.
But the good thing, I was a good student in high school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was probably an A minor student,
Okay.
and so I had a good foundation from school in Chicago, and so my IQ was high. As a matter of fact, when I had completed my basic training, the officer that was going over your selection for your military occupational specialty says, Private Hooper, you have a high IQ. You're a smart young man. I think you make an excellent steward. Well, I kind of shocked him because I said, sir, I didn't join the Marine Corps to be anybody's boot black.
Ooh.
And he looked at me, and I could see his little jaw twitching. He said, get out. Get out of my office. And so I got up and I left. So I didn't know what I was going to be doing in the Marine Corps. So I was assigned to, when we graduated, I was selected to go, I was going to aviation prep school.
Right.
And to Jacksonville, Florida. And I was back in school again. Physics,
Right.
algebra, trig, and all that stuff. And they sent me to aircraft jet mechanic school.
Okay.
And that's where I went. But if I hadn't opened my mouth, and even though he didn't like what I said, the way I said it, I guess, he sent me to the prep school, which was a good thing.
Right.
And then he assigned me to jet mechanic school. And that's where I acquired some technical skills. And this was probably in the early stages of FedEx or before, when Fred Smith was trying to put things together, you know. But
Well,
that was another experience.
So I'm gonna take you back. I'm gonna take you back to Dixie Homes today.
Yeah.
You walk in the door, sitting there at the table watching boxing, is young Henry Hooper. What would you say to him?
Well, I would say see if they were interested in boxing, because I have actually at one time helped coach boxing with the Memphis Police Department for a brief time. Over there by downtown, off of near Danny Thomas, when they had their little police gym over there. In the early days, I would help them a little bit.
We wouldn't give him any advice on what he got coming from.
Well, I would just tell him, I was just trying to teach some fundamentals. I never talk about my history or anything like that or what I did. I just show them.
Okay. Right.
When they get through with enough jabs in their eyes and right crosses in the chin or in the gut, they'll pick it up.
Okay.
All
right.
And so you don't have to do a whole lot of conversation.
Okay.
With these till you get it right.
Okay.
And so that's what you do. But it was also a chance to influence them through conversation about their lifestyle and what they can do for themselves and what they ought to think about for their future.
So if you're talking to your younger self, you give them a few right crosses and all of that, to toughen him up a little bit, and then get him to listen to you.
Well, sometimes it's what it takes. You have to. I had two boys, and one of them I could talk to and just talk to her.
Wait a minute, you the first person on the journey that ever said they'd go back and beat themselves up.
Yeah. I had one, and then I had another one. Now my other son is, he just let you scream.
He just
and
look
it
at
doesn't
you.
bother you. But both of them at 16, I had to knock them down.
Okay.
Because they thought they were.
They was ready.
Yeah.
Huh? Okay.
And then one, and then my oldest one was playing football out in North Alabama, and the coach says, "Mr. Hooper, Mark's he's an All-American, but his pinochle game is getting the best of him. He ain't getting up and going to school.
Oh man.
So he's flunked out. He flunked out. Came home. I says, son, what do you? I said, you went down there and you wasted those folks' money. I said, parents' money is a terrible thing to waste. And you ain't wasting mine.
Ooh.
You got 30 days to find your house, find your place to stay, and find your job.
Oh man.
And then when you're ready to go to school, you can come back.
Okay.
And so he did. He left.
All right. Well, Henry, we done come to the end, and I want you to leave these young folks that's watching this. I want you to leave them with something they can take with them that will absolutely let them navigate life a little bit better. And I want you to say it right in that camera, your camera.
Yeah.
Floor is yours.
I think basically, whatever you're challenged with, you need to meet that head on. No excuses. You do the best that you can. When you've done the best that you can, and if you don't make it, then it's not an issue because you did your best. And so that's what you have to do. And 99% of the time you'll be successful if you put your best in. And that's all. You can pray about it first. And leave it to God and just go for it. I mean, it's one thing I hate is excuses with no effort. That's you're not going to be successful. Whatever you want, it's up to you. And I say, if it's to be, it's up to me. And so that's the main thing that I would encourage all these young people, man or woman, what doesn't make any difference what occupation, There were a lot of things that we could have talked about, we didn't talk about, because when I came from Vietnam, I told you I was a high school dropout. And I finished high school, got my high school diploma, And so I didn't have any college. You got to have a degree to be an agent.
Right.
So I started a job with the sheriff's department as a patrolman. And I went to school full time in Memphis State. I took 21 hours a semester.
Wow.
2 years I graduated.
Wow.
No excuses. The challenge was that I had 2 years that I know I needed to finish. I need to get that degree as soon as I could, and if I was going to be a federal agent. And that's what I did. And that's what you need to do. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. And so I worked hard. You know, I rode the squad cars at nighttime. You know, we haven't talked about other stuff. You know, during this period of time was also the time when Dr. King was assassinated.
Right.
So I'm riding a squad car, 4 men per car in the TAC squad, 4 cars in the unit.
Right.
I'm the only African American in the TAC unit.
Wow.
And so in Memphis. So there was a lot that went on, and I, you see something, you say something.
Right.
And I did
Okay.
during that time. I would say this, there was some abuse done in my presence one time. The second time, I was the first one on the scene and I took over. Didn't ask anybody. Frontline supervisor was standing there. But I took charge. And I said, now get out of this, get home. And the guy didn't get abused or anything.
Right.
And so when I got off that night, they called me, there was my contemporaries with the sheriff's department, about 14 guys that were standing there who was drinking beer. Hooper, I understand the city boys, they call the Memphis Police Department, the guys, call you super nigga. So I walked up to the guy who was about my height, but he was a little heavier. I said, I can't help cause I'm good. That diffused the situation.
Right.
Because I knew if I punched him, I may have to fight a few of them.
Right.
And another guy brought me a beer.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that's the kind of attitude that I had. I didn't allow things to occur in my presence, and I see it. And if it's wrong, I didn't say something.
Right.
And that's when your earlier question about how you accepted things from during the segregated days. No, now I was a rascal too, you know.
Right.
And the bus drivers to get in the back of the bus. I didn't always get in the back of the bus.
Oh, you was a rebel too.
I was a rebel too, but I knew where my limits were.
Right.
See? And so I take them right to the edge.
Well, Henry,
And so that was
thank
it.
you. Thank you very much.
Certainly.
Listen, it's the battles inside. It's
Yes.
the battles inside of all of us. And you can make a difference. You got to make a difference. Just like Brother Hooper. So listen, as I've always said, we're going to keep bringing them back to you. Every single time we're bringing these iconic Memphis men back to you. So you keep coming back, and we will too. I'm Larry Robinson. For my guest,
Certainly.
brother,
Yes.
Henry Hooper. Don't forget he's a good Kappa man too. Till the next time on The Journey. Take care.
Thank you to our partner, the Grand Boulé of Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity Delta Chapter. To hear more incredible stories like this, be sure to download the KUDZUKIAN app from the App Store or Google Play, or check out the Journey Memphis podcast on all your major podcast providers. Also, check us out on the KUDZUKIAN Network.